Remakes seem to be the thing where fans love to play some of their classic games from the old and just to see them upgrade it from the ground up to enjoy those same experiences again. A few years ago, Capcom took a survey amongst its fans to see what game from the past that they would like to see remade, and a lot of them suggested they want to see a Resident Evil 2 remake, which went on in 2019 to be up for the Game of the Year. And fans loved what they played, just the experiences that they had, the overall joy of being that horror genre feel behind Resident Evil. Well, it wouldn't be too long after that Capcom came out with Resident Evil 3 Remake. So, fans had high expectations for this game, and for people that have never played the game to actually experience for the first time to see what the big hype was about said game that got remade. And for me, Perry, here at AWOI Gaming, this would be my first time also diving into Resident Evil 3. If you're not familiar with the way we review games here at AWOI Gaming, we look at games in a way that they might be influential to the game community, gamers, and developers, as we still try to spread positivity in this world as we need it, and games can be a positive insight in hard times or just overall fun. Now, let's see if Resident Evil 3 followed its predecessor in becoming a good game and influential overall. First up, graphics. The developers really captured that horror flick vibe in Resident Evil 3 where you feel like every move that you make, there might be a zombie right on the other side, as it is dark and scary throughout the entire playthrough. There was never a time where I felt like where I was not on my toes because I had no idea what was around the corner. The dark and visionary, but still seeing the same lighting just a bit for any enemies that you encounter is there. And it also has that scare effect of, oh my gosh, I gotta do something before I die, because a zombie's coming out of nowhere and I had to do something super fast. That was cool because it made me think about my next move before I actually made it, and made the game feel more real and not just empty whatsoever. Seeing random fires out in the street makes sense as well as far as graphics, because it captures the vibe that Raccoon City is a place caught on fire as the zombie apocalypse is happening and the outbreak is taking over the city. So it's more chaotic to see that experience, and I felt like that made it even more realistic that the city would become chaotic and no human right form besides the top priority would know what to do in the situation. Seeing zombies out in the street felt real too, because it added to the fact that you are walking through a city that's filled with zombies as you're trying to carry out the story. But what makes Resident Evil 3 Remake so unique is the fact that it takes some of its older models and makes it bigger and better. I can only imagine what some of these zombies look like, because they take on different life forms and they look different. They're just not your average daywalkers. Some of them are mutated creatures, and they are visually horrifying to look at, and it caused me a couple of times to go like, how do I handle this thing? And for it to do that added to the scare factor of what Resident Evil games remain to be. You see that zombie right there? Well, look at this one instead. It looks very more scarier. And that leads me to looking at what Nemesis looks like as a character. I've seen pictures of the old Nemesis, and I have to say, this looks visually better than what it was back on the PlayStation. He looked scary and believable that this type of monster would want to hunt you down and just kill you, just to kill you. The fact that Capcom spent so much time into remaking some of their characters and putting love behind it is a testament to its fans that they care about their projects and they're willing to put that extra effort into making sure that even its visual characters are up to par and even modernized. Which brings me to Jill and Carlos. If you've ever seen the old pictures or played the old games, you know that Jill and Carlos look unrealistic compared to their Resident Evil 3 remake. And that's just a testament to technology and the fact that Capcom took the time to make them look believable and realize that they could. I was overwhelmingly shocked at how well the characters looked and enjoyed that they look so realistic. And it also goes to show how gaming has been able to evolve over the years, and some of our fan favorites, such as Jill or Carlos, are able to get that realistic feel to them, and it makes the game more viable and just makes it look so much better that they look like human figures rather than polygon figures. Overall, the graphics for Resident Evil 3 were amazing to look at. They were horrifying when you're playing through it, and I'm sure it was a love letter to all the fans of the past and also new. Up next, gameplay. It's a zombie game, so what do you do in most zombie games? You try to make sure that you're not lunch meat for the onslaught of zombies that are walking towards your way, and you're constantly having to shoot them. I mean, who would want to be lunch meat? Gameplay is simple though. You are constantly just shooting at zombies to get them up your way, and you try to aim for the headshot, but just because you shoot them in the head doesn't mean that they're going to go down. Single headshots can lead to zombies going down. It just has to be a clean shot, and that's based off the way you aim it and the way that you're trying to go. But the problem with this is that zombies are constantly coming at you. But what do you do in this case? You dodge. You get out the way, which allows you to slow down and reflex into a slow motion shooting motion that can give you a few seconds to put down the zombie. I felt like that was cool because it allowed me to gain the upper hand if zombies were coming at me constantly. By doing this, it allows you to reposition to shoot the zombie that was trying to bite you. And yes, if another zombie is near, you can dodge out that one's animation to get the slow motion going again. It's just a constant chain that you had to time perfectly, because if not, that zombie is going to get you, and you just have to continuously to tap X to get it off of you. So it's just best to make sure that the zombie doesn't get you, because your health bar is low and you have to stay in front and you have to keep going to get to the next area. When it comes to the controls, they're not super complex. You use the left and right trigger to be able to aim and shoot at the zombies in front of you, and that made it super easy, because once you get the controls down, Resident Evil 3 Remake doesn't feel hard to play and grasp its controls. Also, what's cool about it is that I see a staple from a past game in Resident Evil 4 still used in the current Resident Evil games, and that's with the over-the-shoulder shooting camera, because it made the shooting feel more believable that zombies are coming at you and you gotta stop them right in front of you, compared to it being a wide range of an area. That camera angle also helps influence the headshot that you're aiming for throughout the game, to help save on ammo and to be able to use the resources that you have to go forward. It is great that Capcom kept that shoulder angle as well, because you have no idea what is behind you too, because even though there might be zombies in front of you, there might be some behind you as well, and that adds jump scare effects that you wasn't expecting, because you felt like you took care of everything behind you, and it just makes you feel like you're in the moment, and it intensifies what you need to do to be able to survive to get to the next area. Also, while having your gun out with the camera angle, just as the light shining with your flashlight, it just makes it look scarier as you're trying to wiggle your way through the house or the mansion or the city, not knowing what to expect. Just the fact that it's up close and you have your gun out ready to go is something cool, and I wish that future horror games also capitalize on the fact that if your camera angle's front and you can shoot that way, it is fine to go, because it intensifies what is coming next. And with horror genre games, it needs to have that same intensity throughout. And I felt like Resident Evil 3 did that, as it made me wonder if I should go faster or slower through the areas that I was playing. But Resident Evil 3 isn't just a zombie game where you just shoot zombies. It's also a puzzle-based game, meaning that you have to figure out what you need to be able to get to the next spot. These type of things include solving puzzles, figuring out what your lock combination was in high school was, and unlocking the gear that you didn't have at the beginning of the game. Once you unlock a map for the location that you're at, it is pretty much simple of knowing where you need to go to take on those nasty zombies that you couldn't do at first. Well, you could probably do it. You do also have a handy knife that never breaks, but wouldn't you rather have a cool gun instead? Speaking of guns, you have to know when and when not to spray ammo out, because there were several times where I would run out of ammo and felt like I needed an extra to beat some of the boss fights or just to get out of certain areas. But after several tries, I was able to get out those areas. The inventory system also can seem punishing at first because you're not able to hold every item that you have up to that point. This is actually a good and influential thing to do because it makes the players think, well, what is actually necessary in the situation and what is not. And I feel like Capcom did a really good job of doing that because there were several times where I felt like, well, I don't actually need this said item right now anymore, so let's store it or discard it. By doing that, it made me feel like I can go through an area just fine. But what's also cool is that even though your inventory starts off small, you can actually upgrade your inventory the longer you play, the safes that you find, the puzzles that you solve. It almost feels rewarding to explore and not to rush through the game and to experience every nook and cranny that the developers want you to play during the game. And yes, you can upgrade your weapons by exploring the areas and finding the necessary parts to upgrade your weapon. By doing that, it allows you to have better firepower to get those headshots that are really the relying force to get through an area quicker and just speeds up the overall game. That's not rushing through it, it just makes it feel better, smoother, and overall enjoyable because no one wants to see a zombie get off the floor after shooting it 4 times in the head, do they? I am overall glad to see that Capcom still kept with its same tradition of making you feel like their game is hard at first, but once you master everything, you're good to go. And it's still here in Resident Evil 3 Remake, and it just makes it a better experience overall because once you understand, you will be shooting down zombies the entire time with no problems, dodging out the way like a pro. And then you get to play it on the harder difficulties. However, the most important part about the gameplay in Resident Evil 3 is the nemesis system that the players will encounter throughout the entire game. There is this enemy called Nemesis, and he just kind of follows you the entire time you're going through the game. Meaning that he's chasing you down, he can warp through areas, run through walls, just to get in front of you, just to stop what you're doing. This mechanic is added to make the players feel fast and on their toes and have to move forward with the story. But it also adds you to the difficulty of how am I going to get around this obstacle in order to advance the story. I think that is cool because if you are a fan of Resident Evil 2, then you know that Mr. X mechanic is there as well. So for it to be also used in Resident Evil 3 with Nemesis, it just shows that Capcom was able to do the same thing and made it better. And it's still shown in this game, as at times it felt difficult with me not understanding how to get past Nemesis, but once you do, it's felt great. And it also adds to the whole action-packed genre that you have to get away, and it's just not a horror game. It feels like someone's chasing you down constantly, and you just have to get to the next area to be able to beat them, because the area is either crashing down or fires around you and it's just time to go. It is also cool what Capcom was able to do with the main characters in Jill Valentine and Carlos Oliveira. What I mean by this is that it felt like a movie happening where you played as, starting off with Jill Valentine, the main character of the story, into Carlos Oliveira. In previous Resident Evil 2 Remake, you played through Leon's story and then played through Claire's story, which means that you had to go back and forth. What they did with Resident Evil 3 is that they embedded the two characters' stories together, and you're able to play out with them in your first playthrough without having to revisit certain levels that you already visited in their previous playthrough. This also allows you to play with different guns and feel what the other character is capable of doing. It also gives you a feel of switching up the overall experience. You only play as Carlos as a short amount of time, but it is awesome that you're able to experience what he was going through in those short amounts of time. It makes him feel like a real character and not just some standby that was just there while Jill Valentine was doing all the work. Up next, and certainly not least, the story of Resident Evil 3 Remake. The story is simple. There was a pandemic that has unleashed into Raccoon City, and it is your job to get away from the zombies and Nemesis, and also the city that is about to be obliterated in the morning time. This makes for an action-paced game filled with its horror, and it was just a great overall experience as you learn more about Jill and how she is just a badass female protagonist throughout this entire game that gives no fucks or straights to get to what she needs to get done. Carlos Oliveira is also a good sidekick as he always has Jill's back, tied into the fact that every cutscene felt like a movie, or any cinematic approach that was happening felt like you were in the moment and enjoying what was happening on screen. With the zombies coming with you, with Nemesis coming at you, the story feels intense the entire time, and it almost felt like Capcom took a book from Uncharted and put it into Resident Evil 3, which is cool because action-paced games need to have those moments of like, what's going to happen next? And seeing that influence of an action-paced game such as Uncharted and Resident Evil is good. And also the fact that the camera always seems to be on you. It intensifies what is crashing down around you as you're trying to get to the next area. And it just makes the story feel so fluid and just feel so great. The only downside behind Resident Evil 3, though, is that it is only a 6-hour game. Yes, you can beat it exactly 6 hours. There's even trophies where you can beat it in 2.5 hours. And as far as replayability, the only reason you would actually replay it is to get better guns. But after a while, I feel like you would stress yourself to see that ending several times again. You might skip the scenes just to get the guns, but the way you get the guns is by base how you play, and you need points to do that. So every headshot, every point goes to the point system after you beat the game. Also, it's based off of what your rank is, because some people rank at the S rank, some people rank at the C rank, but the overall goal is to get those guns to play on the hardest modes. Yes, we have completionists and it's there for you. But if you just want to see the game one time through, 6 hours just doesn't seem like enough. But it was an overall enjoying experience, and I enjoyed it entirely. I just wish there was more content. Maybe they could have added more with Carlos. This is a remake, so you have to be understanding that they took the original material and just made it from the ground up the same thing. And it was an overall great experience. I just wish there was more content, but it never weighed the way I rated this game. Now, if you're not familiar with the way we rate games, we use what I like to call is an influential scale, where it goes from not influential, influential, potential, and very influential. And this is based off if it will have influence over the next game that Capcom makes, or other games, or just gamers overall. And I had to say that Resident Evil 3 Remake is a potential game that other remakes can learn to make better. And overall mechanics and just overall scheme for the next upcoming games. Let's just say Capcom makes Resident Evil 4, which I actually hope that they do. Maybe this is not a ground up thing. They actually add more to it and makes it feel longer than the 6 hour span. But if you're here to play Resident Evil 3, go for it. It was a fun and enjoyment game. It is great for new players, including myself, to experience Resident Evil 3 for the first time and still go talk to some of my friends that are big Resident Evil 3 fans and go, oh yeah, this is the same thing. Did you like it? And I can say, yeah, it was great. And it was a potentially influential towards new games coming up, and also allows others to dive into the game for the first time and just enjoy it. Now, if you like this, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment and give me what your thoughts about Resident Evil 3 was. And guys, please continue to stay safe during this quarantine. I understand we all want to get out. Go read, go walk, go play some more games. Just stay safe and stay isolated. We are all in this together, and I mean that from the bottom of his heart. We love you here at AWOI Gaming. We don't want to see anyone else hurt. Just continue. With this isolation, we can come back together and enjoy our time spent together, either gaming, going to the movies, or just overall just walking in the park. Thank you for watching the review, and like I said, stay safe. This is Perry at AWOI Gaming, and I'll see you next time.